I mean, not to throw a stereotype out there, but PvPers, because you guys are in the Crucible and in Trials and in Comp as much as you are, you generally speaking don't care about the rest of it, which is fair enough because that's what you enjoy. It's one of those moments at which it's like, hey, maybe we should take a look at what's happening. And I'm very happy to be there for a moment like that, because you know what? If you're diving in, who am I to say no?
And you've got our backs, but you've also got, you know, a lot of people watching on live stream who probably don't know everything about what's going on. So it's going to be a very good lead-in to Lightfall. Just to have at least some clue, because I'm going to speak personally here. I skip or don't pay attention to every cutscene. And I know that that is ridiculous, because part of what's been so nice about recent seasons is the story. They do a really good job of storytelling every season. But I have no idea what's happening every time. So, it's going to be very helpful.
To an extent, though, because I know with you in particular, whilst again it's the PvP thing, you're also you're the kind of person who's in the top 5 people to get to light level max every time first. So it's just like, I get that you in particular would be skipping because your priority is speed.
Yep.
You know?
I like to grind.
You're playing it for a totally different reason, and you know what? Fair power to you on that front. Ooh, damn. Nice snipe.
Nighthawk's a slayer, dude. He's going to get a lot of snipes. So I think what will be fun about this is we'll kind of just naturally combine, like, storytelling and talking, and, like, calling out when it needs to happen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It'll be great. But how about I lead us off with a really simple question that is way too vague and is going to be setting you up for way too much talking, so answer however the hell you want. But for someone like me or somebody in the Destiny world who's just getting into it and doesn't know too much about what's going on, we're coming up on Lightfall. Big annual DLC, a lot of action, a lot of things changing. If you had to give a quick pitch as to what we need to be looking out for, like just the overarching concept, not like 40 minutes, just give us like a 2-minute breakdown and then we'll get more detailed afterwards. How would you answer that?
For 10 years, if you've been playing Destiny for that long, you've heard all these things about the darkness is on its way and darkness is coming. Now it's properly here. We are actually at that point where we're seeing the final battle. To give you possibly the coolest comparison I think I can, which I think is accurate, I think if you look at this in Marvel terms, Lightfall is a little bit like Infinity War, and Final Shape is probably going to be like Endgame. That's the way I would phrase it. That's the way I would look at it. That's how I would compare everything that's going on.
Sweet.
So yeah, you are looking at some kind of crazy build-up to the story, and this is going to be the start of the end of the first big chapter of Destiny. It sounds really broad and whatnot, but like that's absolutely where I'd put it. That's where I'd start.
I guess that kind of segues me into a different question that's a little bit outside of lore, but the start of the end of our first chapter in Destiny. Do you think that Destiny is going to get more games and more updates even after the final shape?
Oh, no question. They've already said as much, not just in all the different bit-ups and all the other bits and pieces they put out, but also they have confirmed it through their jobs postings. I mean, there are narrative leads and directors and all sorts of other people who have been hired in to the company recently, and the entire point of their hiring, as posted publicly in the job description, was guiding Destiny's narrative for the next 10 years.
Oh my god.
So, without question, it's not just the fact that they're rounding out this particular part of Destiny, they're already clearly working on the next part.
Wow, okay.
You know, like, it is certainly not over. Just purely from the financial side of it, you know, if you're looking at a game like Destiny, there is no question that when you have this many players invested in it, whether that's for PvE or PvP or anything in between, you have a very big incentive to keep going. Just because one story is over does not mean that a persistent world ends.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great time to sit there and jump in, though, because even if you just see the end of this, you know, a whole new story is going to open up, and I imagine that the universe is going to get a whole lot broader.
That's crazy. I don't know what it is, but for some reason I was so confident that final shape we get a full year, and then whatever they're working on behind the scenes, their new game, I expected to come out and kind of have Destiny settle in the dust a little bit, but that's fantastic news that would not be the case.
I think as well, like, this is something which may come across as a little bit odd, but Destiny is a game that has stories to tell. You know, like, This is a game where in one raid you're going ahead and slaying a dragon, and another you're going and fighting a giant mecha. And those two raids are literally one season apart. I mean, you know, there's all sorts of variety under the sun in this game, and that means that you can go almost anywhere. You know, as far as open plot lines are concerned, you know, we still need to help the Cabal reclaim their homeworld. That's just another massive thing where it's, okay, we got a big Hive Cabal expansion up ahead, because the Hive are the ones that took their homeworld. So, yeah. All that stuff on its own is a series of plot threads that could be unraveled, and that's just picking up one series of characters, you know, Keitel and Valis Forge at this point, and, you know, all the Hives, so Xivu Arath, and everyone in between.
So, let's assume that everybody knows what Hive are, what Cabal are. Like, we're not brand new to Destiny. We know the enemies, we've been playing, but assume we're coming in to Lightfall, and we haven't really been playing the last couple of years. What's the setup for Lightfall? Like you already said, it's the beginning of that final fight, potentially the beginning of the end in Chapter 1 of Destiny, you know, but what is it that if somebody who's not been playing for the past year or two can go into Lightfall expecting to see, so that way we're kind of caught up and know what we're getting into?
I think there is one thing that I would absolutely look at, which is not going to explain everything, but at very least is going to give you a small premise of things to come.
Okay.
And that's actually the finale cutscene for Season of the Seraph, right?
And I watched it, by the way.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, no, reason for that is because you see the Traveler doing something for the first time in 10 years. And like, if we're really talking broad strokes and everything in between, the reality is that we need to acknowledge the Traveler has done something it's not done in years, which is actually moved, actually done something, and actually seemingly made a choice, right?
Right.
That entire season, that entire cutscene revolves around Rasputin. And there is a moment where he has to sacrifice himself in order to save the Traveler. And for those of you who are newer to Destiny, the reason that matters is because without the Traveler, Guardians don't have any of their abilities. We can't continuously resurrect, we don't have the light, we don't have any of that stuff. So this is a big kind of make or break moment. One of the villains of this season and of previous expansions, Aramis, is literally this close to blowing up the Traveler with all of this. So it's a big deal at this moment in time. You know, you're sitting there looking at a character whose entire motivation, his entire story has been all about making sure that she can kill the Traveler, essentially, for reasons that are her own. And Rasputin sacrifices himself in that moment. And I think the thing that isn't said in the cutscene, but which is really important, is that that sacrifice forces the Traveler to stand and fight. And that's the entire reason all this Lightfall stuff even happens, is because the Traveler is staying with us. It could have fled, and it would have just gone on, and still been chased, and the Pyramid ships would have left. But it's choosing to fight here, and that's why the conflict is here. That's why the Pyramid fleets come along, that's why the Pyramid fleet is staying and will eventually battle above Earth. This is where all of it really goes down. But yeah, I think that's the first thing I would sit and watch, no question. But everything else, it's about understanding who Callus is. Maybe understanding who Osiris is, but Callus is the really big, important one. And I'd say you could probably do better than going through and thinking about some stuff to do with duality. Because oddly enough, that is actually a great explanation of all of his backstory and his lore, and it's an introduction to things that have been building for about 6 years.
The dungeon is?
Yes, absolutely.
Ah.
So, I think best example, right? It goes through his entire life as it pertains to his daughter. Because his daughter, spoiler alert, is the final boss. It's a nightmare of his daughter, so it's not the real Keitel, needless to say. But it's all set inside his own mind. And the entire point of going through that is you're trying to understand Callus's mind so that you can pick it apart, so you can assess his weaknesses. And the ultimate weakness, as it seems, is the fact that he still very much has a weak spot and a little bit of scars when it comes to his daughter. You know, the entire thing for them will end up being about how that interaction goes, and I think that's probably one of the most important relationships in Lightfall.
Do you have any idea where it's going to start? Like, what our first objective, like, come into Lightfall, first thing to do is? Or is that just a guess?
Oh, this is probably going to be a defend the Traveler kind of situation. You're probably looking at the Pyramid fleet arrives, and then immediately it's like, okay, bad things are going. Am I allowed to swear on this stream, Jake?
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Okay, bad shit's happening. Bad shit's going down. We need to throw everything, including the kitchen sink at the pyramid fleet. I imagine we start the expansion by losing. And I think that then leads us into the point at which we need to go towards Neptune to find what it is that we've been sent there to find. Which is also stuff from Season of the Seraph that you might want to sit and think about. I could give you the crazy complicated version, but basically there's something really powerful there that is very important to the witness, which might help and might ultimately allow us to save everybody here.
Something powerful in like the season we're currently in?
Oh no, on Neptune in Lightfall.
Okay.
Yeah, so to go really deep into the lore and just to give everybody that lowdown, there is this thing that was hinted at during the Witch Queen campaign, and it was called Nefele Stronghold. All of this was basically pointing to the idea that the new destination, Neomuna, the city on Neptune, existed. But it turns out the files concerning all of that, which Rasputin originally had, which he got us to dig up for him this season, contained information stating that at that location, on Neptune, there is something of remarkable power called the Veil. Now, inside take, there has been a lot of shit to do with the Veil previously in Destiny, and all of it comes from leaks and stuff that is not at all confirmed, and all of it hasn't been touched for years. And so the fact that a name like that is suddenly getting dropped rings all sorts of alarm bells. I'm not going to speculate on what that could be, because most of that speculation is probably incorrect. What I will say is we know that it is somehow linked to the Traveler, because that's what Rasputin tells us from the end of the Season of the Seraph. So whatever it is, it's bound to be really important. There's something going on with it, and it's definitely going to cause trouble in some regard. We just don't quite know what's going on with it. So yeah, you have this mysterious object somewhere on the other side of the solar system, which is probably going to be what's required to save the Traveler, save us, and by extension, everybody who lives on Earth.
Do you think that the Witness is something we're going to get to fight this DLC, this story, or are you expecting that more to be a final shape?
So let me put it this way. I think there is a decent chance we actually do fight the Witness this time around. However, the key thing is fight, not fight and win, you know? I think that if you're going to look at this, this is going to be exactly like the beginning of an Infinity War, where, you know, you see Loki and Hulk and Thor coming across Thanos, and he absolutely shreds, you know, kills Loki immediately, sends Thor back with his tail between his legs, and Hulk is no longer able to Hulk out appropriately because it's just such an ass whooping, you know? This is one of those moments where I have a feeling that if you're really looking at Destiny in the context of how you make a villain, they're going to take cues from things like Infinity War and Endgame. And they've shown that this thing is powerful enough to destroy Guardians. I mean, if you've seen the launch trailer, you've seen what it does where it literally shreds entire Guardians and their ghosts.
Yeah.
And not even in some visceral way, in some, like, way where it's totally decompiling them. Like, this thing is so powerful, and it does it with a wave of a hand in a really frustrated manner, because to us, it's the greatest thing we've ever faced. But to the Witness, I feel like it's probably more as though we're just irritating, petulant children, you know? Like, you know, this is the same entity that with Rasputin in Season of Arrivals, when it first saw the Pyramid Fleet coming again and was like, I'm gonna fight them, it shut Rasputin down instantly, you know? It took about 10 seconds. And that was when Rasputin was not just an exoframe and a bunch of recovered data. This was a full functioning war mind at the height of its power. So you've got like a really scary foe here that really is just way beyond most of the shit that we've faced in Destiny. So you have a problem. You just need to find a way to answer it. And that's the that's where I think things like the Veil will come in, because I suspect that Guardians alone are not going to be enough to answer this.
Do you think that we're going to be, you kind of implied maybe we're going to be fighting with the Witness potentially at some point?
Oh, no, not on its side ever. Never on its side.
Because you were saying like
it.
against, or I don't remember the way you worded it, but I was like, hold on a second. Do you think we're going to like befriend this thing and start fighting with it next like DLC? I was like, hold on, man. This does not sound like how it's going to go down.
Oh, no. I'm merely implying we'd fight and we'd probably lose. You know? Like,
so maybe,
oh man.
Okay, cool. So we got to figure out some way potentially to figure out a way to actually take the witness down. Whereas maybe this DLC, we don't get that solved. So then we spend the next year hopefully picking up on little things like you've been hinting at to eventually be able to do it.
Yes, and I'd imagine that's kind of where the season goes. So, for context, we know the names of 2 seasons going ahead. The season coming along with Lightfall is Season of Defiance, of course, which has got a very awoken theme, but apparently you're also working to sort of defend the people of the city and fight the war at home. So you're looking at something like, say, breaking people out of prison camps that the cabal of Callus's Legion have set up and things like that. But you're also looking at a very awoken theme. So you're going to be fighting alongside characters like Mara and Petra. I imagine they have something much deeper to do with it. The season afterwards is called Season of the Deep. For those of you who don't know Destiny context, when you say the deep, that is a very high-V kind of context, referring to the darkness. So your theming there is probably looking at someone like Xivu Arath. You may see, if she does get resurrected on the crazy off chance, Savathun coming back, because we didn't totally kill her in Witch Queen. You may see worm gods coming into the story. You may see deeper secrets of darkness being unlocked too. There's a whole lot that we don't know about that season, so it's something where that is total speculation, but I imagine that if there is a move towards building up power so we can face the witness again, that starts predominantly in the Season of the Deep, where we may wield some kind of new darkness power in some respect, or may at least show everybody that the power of darkness can be used to fight the witness too. That's kind of where I'd say most of that tends to lie.
I didn't even know the next season was Defiance, dude. That's how far out of it I am. I'm just reading TWABs. I'm like, does it say anything about trials? No, skip.
I mean, hey, fair enough. That's what you're here for, man.
No, but this is why what you are doing right now for me is so helpful, because I really do enjoy actually having an understanding of a game. Like, when I'm playing through any kind of a story game, it's much more, there's more to it when you're actually understanding instead of just fighting, trying to grind. So having an understanding of where we are in the world in Destiny, and like what we can maybe even like expect ahead of it, not just like right now, but like having an idea of what might lie a season or 2 ahead, I think is a really helpful way to make it more engaging to do the story. Because I loved Witch Queen, dude. I loved it, but part of the problem with it was such a good campaign, is I was trying so hard to understand everything, and I was like so jealous of those who, like you and those who watch your videos, who probably were super in sync with everything and understood all the crazy like plot twists and whatnot that happened towards the end. That was probably such an exciting and amazing moment for everybody.
Oh, you definitely hit it on the head. Like, I need you to understand that when it comes down to it, there is no judgment from me when it comes to it. But I'm right there with you. I feel really, really sorry for anybody who didn't get the experience with Witch Queen of actually being able to learn about everything that was going on with the full context. Because this, I mean, it sounds strange to say it because this is what I've said about Lightfall, but Witch Queen was a campaign that had about half a decade worth of build-up and context to it as well. You know, I mean, Savathun has been hinted at ever since we had the Taken King, you know, and that was back in 2015.
Yeah, it was forever ago.
Yeah, and we fought and killed her brother, and in a strange way, that's one of the catalysts that pushes her towards what she does, is stealing the light and everything. So you have a really interesting dynamic based on that alone. There's tons of lore that went into the decisions that she ultimately made, and even just how she concocts her plan in the end during the campaign is remarkable. I mean, I don't know if you actually caught it, so this is a silly question, but do you know what the big twists of Witch Queen are?
Well, okay, it's been a year, so I'm not gonna lie to you. Some of it may have slipped, but the idea sort of being that originally the Hive were sort of chosen to be who received the light or whatnot. Just tell me. I'm gonna screw it up and embarrass myself.
No, not at all. This is actually a great chance to go through the context, so this is fantastic. So, what the Traveler does constantly, which is where all of this begins, is it goes around and it is constantly looking for worlds that it can uplift. You know, you're looking at this massive ball that has only one purpose seemingly, and that's to basically uplift civilizations. As it does this, it will go around from planet to planet. The Witness and its fleet have seemingly followed it constantly, and then as they have gone around, they've extinguished those civilizations. The Hive were going to be the next ones uplifted, and to be clear, this doesn't mean they were going to become Guardians originally. This just means that they were going to be like the Fallen, where it made their worlds bountiful and gave them longer lifespans, and made it so that life was good. When the Witch Queen campaign goes down, we learn that the Witness was aware of the fact that the Hive were the next who are going to be uplifted and chosen. And so what it does is it dispatches Rulk, and Rulk is the boss from, you know, Valve the Disciple. You've needless to say done that, so you know about him.
Right.
Big man with the terrifying donkey kicks. When he comes along to the Hive's homeworld, he sets up and concocts a plot which will turn them to darkness. And using the worm gods which he finds on Fundament, he essentially makes it so that they are forever eternally bound to do the bidding of the Witness. And it's a master stroke because none of the Hive know about this. They were deceived by the Witness and by Rulk from the very beginning, and they're forever just bound in this blood tithe. So that is the thing, that's the first really big revelation that comes out of the campaign about the Witness in the first place, was just how Savathun, the Master Deceiver, was originally deceived. The key thing of it, which goes down in the campaign, is there's a familiar that you recover. You remember the mission with the Ahamkara?
Yep.
It's a thing you grab off the statue. That thing is billions of years old and floated up to Savathun in her younger self years ago. And it's basically a dead worm, which functions in a way that when it is dead, it can just whisper things to you still, and it still impacts your mind. It's kind of scary like that. It whispered to her that there was going to be a disaster and that they had to go down to the bottom of the ocean of the world they lived on in order to survive it and find an answer. And that's where they found the worm gods. That's how the trap gets baited. This is the key revelation of everything as far as that particular bit of deception goes. This was not something Savathun intended for us to find. The thing she did intend for us to do was to help restore her own memories. This is the other key revelation that happens during Witch Queen. So we're constantly trying to figure out what Savathun's plan is and why she stole the light. That's the entire reason we go in there in the first place. She basically leaves a bunch of objects for us, which we can take to a place called the Altar of Reflection. And what that does is it allows us to use a power of darkness called Deep Sight to pull psychic energy from those things. And it replays everything like a memory. So you have Sagira's shell, one of the tablets of ruin, which is an old artifact of the Hive from her brother Oryx, and then you have the shard of where she was imprisoned during the Season of the Lost. Those three objects together basically not only tell about why she stole the light, but also it gives the context of what her plan was. So we feed her own plan back to her. Because remember, she's a Guardian, she's died. When you die as a Guardian, you forget everything about your past life. So we fed every bit of information that she needed to enact her plan back to her. And that plan, as it turns out, was to abduct the Traveler and seal it off in her throne world. Which is why in that final mission, we actually face up against Savathun and the Traveler is there in the sky. And it's been abducted almost. We just about managed to stop that plan, but there's more reasons to do that than just stealing it away from us. The Traveler is there as a means of protecting it from the Witness and the Disciples, and everyone in between. So, us taking the Traveler out of this has also caused Lightfall. There is a lot of indications that the Traveler almost wanted to be locked off in the throne world. There's ideas there that it was trying to find safety. So it's a very interesting question of what are the true intentions of the big ball in the sky, you know?
Huh, okay. Well, thank you for the breakdown.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of that
that's a whole lot. I'm so sorry.
but a lot of it was also serious addition, which was helpful, for sure.
Yeah,
thank you, by the way. Thank you for doing this.
If ever I get too in-depth on things, please let me know, because I often go at full lore tilt with all the depth and all the nonsense. So if ever I say something like paracausal, I'm sitting there and being like, hang on a sec, fucking pull it back. Not everybody knows dumb verbiage.
I doubt you'll get to that spot. I think that what you're doing right now is definitely scraping the surface of what everybody's kind of curious about anyway. And like, by the way, I kind of screwed up by not introing. Most people know who you are, so I sort of don't feel like I need to intro, but it's still very necessary for everybody who's newer to Destiny or is just very PvP focused, for me to explain not only who you are, but what we're doing here. So chat, this is Byf. He's got a YouTube channel that just passed 1 million subscribers. Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
It's freaking awesome. He is the lore daddy. He's just the guy who knows everything about the Destiny lore, the story. He's got a ton of videos. I've even watched a 4-hour one and somehow forgot all of it a year later. He has videos that just break down absolutely every aspect of lore and Destiny story you can imagine. So he's the guy to go to if you're ever curious about what something means, if you want to just deep dive and fully understand the story and the lore behind Destiny. We got a link to his YouTube, not only in the Twitch chat, but we'll have it in the description of a YouTube video that we'll probably create out of this. And yeah, his name is Byf. He does good stuff, and he's kind of just talking us through Destiny lore, but more importantly, specifically what we're expecting come Lightfall, where we've been the most recent couple of seasons, and where we're maybe going. So that way new players or players who just aren't as engrossed in the story like myself can have a little bit of a deeper meaning when they play through Lightfall. Instead of just going in and not understanding what's going on, maybe we'll actually understand some of the context now. So that's the idea, is kind of linking the PvP community with the PvE squad a little bit, having a little bit of a bridge between that gap, because lore is tough. Lore is confusing, and they don't do an amazing job of making it really understandable. That's why you need people like Byf, who can go through a little bit more and kind of break down what we might have missed and what we maybe didn't see on that top surface. So that's what we're doing.
And perhaps more importantly, like there is now a strict difference. Back in the day, lore used to be the only thing that we had, you know, back in D1. When it was all that wizard came from the moon and I don't have time to explain what I don't have time to explain. Destiny is a very different place now, where you can play the core story, but you might not actually understand everything as it pertains to the lore. And that's just another layer of depth that really does add gratification and allows you to enjoy the story so much more for what it is.
You get out what you give it, I believe. And it's not true with everything, but I think that's really true with Destiny. I've tried to fully commit and engage to understanding the lore, because I truly believe that the more you put into understanding it, the more you get out of those twists at the end of Witch Queen and whatever we're about to experience in Lightfall. The more, like you said, gratification, the more you get out of it. But it's one of those things you got to put something into it if you want to get it out. Those people who, myself included, maybe skip a cutscene or don't understand what they're seeing, it's kind of on us to go and do a little studying, watch some Byf videos to fully understand it, so that way we can actually enjoy Destiny to its full extent, rather than just kind of enjoying little aspects here and there.
So I'm under a lot of incentive to say I completely agree 100%, and for the most part I do. What I would say is that, you know, everybody plays video games for their own reason, and whilst absolutely I'm a proponent of people jumping into the story that people love, I also acknowledge that some people, it's just not what I play Destiny, and you know what? That's fine. I'm literally married to a person who doesn't really care that much about lore stuff. You know? She enjoys it because she sees my enthusiasm when I get to sit there and speak about it, you know? And that is the enjoyment she gets out of it. Point being, when we play a game for the reasons that make us have fun, that is the optimal way to do it. So if you're not always going in for the lore and you just want the basic lowdown, that's fine. Like, not everybody needs to be in this place where they are the massive lore boffin like me, where they're constantly looking at all the new stuff. Having said that, you are absolutely right. People do get out as much as they get in, and I promise you that if you are the kind of person who's okay with looking through some of the extra stuff, whether that's some of the old back grimoire that's come from Destiny 1, or whether it's reading through the description of your most favored weapon, there are nuggets and bits and pieces in there that are absolutely worth looking at. You know, some of the funniest little stories that Destiny has do get told on screen now, which is nice, but some of them are in the lore too. So it's good to be able to sit and have that as an experience where you are ready for that to take place.
I kind of want to, and tell me this is a terrible idea, open up to chat a little bit of questions, because I'm sure that there are people in chat who know a way better question and a way better point of clarification than I will. So what do you think about the idea of me letting chat ask a few clarification points about what we've talked about today?
Absolutely. I think my only thing is, let's keep it to just one sentence, because some people will post their thesis and that might be a bit much. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here to answer the specifics of how you think the worm gods in Ahamkara might be an example of divergent evolution. I'm I'm here to tell people about what you want as far as, you know, catching up on story things are concerned. Is there some bit of clarification you want to know about? What do you think of these characters? What do you think of that? You know, maybe keep the more complex stuff for a different kind of avenue, because I definitely want to talk about things.
We'll keep that for your channel. That's all for you.
Yeah.
Question from one of my viewers, Assassin. He wants to know a little bit about the new enemies that we're facing. If there's any kind of like a background to who they are, what they're about.
So I have to presume by new enemies that you mean tormentors. To touch on the other side of it really quickly, Shadow Legion are just Cabal. You know, they're Cabal that serve Callus. They're Cabal that serve the Witness. They've been cloned. That's the way that they exist. They do not have personalities. They can be controlled completely. Tormentors, I presume, is what you were asking about. And they're the really cool ones. They are the brand new darkness type faction enemies. They have a lot of motifs that clearly come from pyramids, from the Witness, and potentially from Rolk, seeing as he's the only other individual that we've seen that has anything kind of like what we see there. So I think that's where you look at your first point for really trying to understand what those enemies are and who they are. What I think is worth knowing is the major bit that we know about their attack, where they will actually pick up a Guardian in an animation and hold them there. I can't remember the exact name, but I think it's called Dark Harvest. And there's a lot of interesting bits and pieces there which imply that they are draining the light from you somehow. I think the most important bit as well is that the Tormentors may be part of a bigger plan here, which is, if you remember in Vow of the Disciple, there's actually a prophecy wall, which has caused all sorts of speculation and whatnot in between. The really big part of that, the important bit to remember, is that there's one sentence where it basically states what the Witness is going to do in Lightfall, which is to commune with the Traveler and drink the light and kill something. The whole drink the light bit, I think, is part of why the Tormentors are a part of the plan. I think Dark Harvest is, in a canonical sense, not going to kill us, but I think it is literally draining the light from a Guardian so it can be collected. I think that is the entire purpose of a Tormentor, is to counter a Guardian. Now, here's the other thing. I don't think this is the first time Tormentors have been deployed. I don't think they're new. I might be wrong about this because this is all speculative, but we see a lot of interesting indications about things that have had no description before but are clearly of the darkness. The big enigma amongst them all is in the Black Armory papers. The Black Armory in the Collapse gets attacked at a certain point by a force of darkness that they can't truly explain. They don't have a description of it. They simply say that it smells like wet earth. Later on, when you're getting Revision 0, in this season, they describe how the smell, for some reason, triggers memories in one of the hidden agents who's alongside you, and the smell they describe is that of petrichor, something which is kind of like musty, damp, wet earth. These sound really weird as references go, but there are indications that the darkness is actually something which is all versed in memory, and these little things bump the idea that a Tormentor could come along and be a part of all this. I guarantee you that if you hear your ghost talking about smelling something that seems damp, that may well be something that leads to some kind of vestige of darkness. It sounds very strange, but this all is the only indication that we've gotten in the Black Armory papers before something tears through their compound and murders most of them. So it's a strange prelude to a very serious threat, I think is the way I'd put it.
Okay.
And possibly the weirdest reference in Destiny, but that's where I think Tormentors come in. Ooh.
This is actually a pretty good team, by the way, and we are somehow already on flawless.
Damn.
Good win, Nighthawk.
That was fast.
Yeah, we've been absolutely flying. I've got a lot of questions people have been tagging me in, so trying to be skimming it while also trying to listen to, also trying to play Trials has been a task. But a few questions I keep seeing are about the Traveler and the laser and whatnot. Do you have any... I don't even know what the question is, but obviously the subject alone might be enough for you to talk for a sec.
The Traveler has finally done something, and I think it seems very clear that that is something that was prompted by the Witness. The Witness coming along and even being in a position where it could even get close to the Traveler is probably the only thing that could have even possibly prompted a response like that. So we see that go down, and all of a sudden, yeah, it makes sense why this perhaps is the only time we've seen the Traveler fight. This is a threat that's been dogging it for thousands of years. So this is the only thing I think it would move for. I'll be completely honest when I sit there and say my speculation on what good old laser beam is rather limited. What I would say is if you take a look at the pyramid ship that it hits in the trailer, suddenly a bunch of plants start growing on it. And we've actually seen that effect before. We see that in the trailer for, I think it was, I want to say it's some Game Lords or something. There's one Lightfall trailer where the witness walks up to something, reaches out its hand, and a similar effect happens, where you have those plants growing all around the witness. It seems clear that comes from the Traveler, and that beam, I think, is best described as like this pure torrent of light. The reason that that seems to grow plants is because that's kind of the thing the light ends up doing. You know, strange as it sounds, this is something where you're probably looking at a pure beam of chaotic creation that's coming along from things, because that is ultimately what the Traveler does on a philosophical level. Chaotic creation is a major part of why it has an opposition to the darkness on a fundamental level. The darkness is very much about rigidity, and the final shape, which everyone keeps going on about, is actually the only shape that supposedly will exist at the end of the universe. You know, that's the reason why it's a big deal. You know, the final shape exists and therefore it is correct. That's their entire idea. Random plants growing and random life sprouting out of nowhere from this beam is something that really stinks of a power directly tied to the light. So yeah, it makes a certain degree of sense in that regard.
How can a ghost smell if it doesn't have a nose?
This is a great question. Oh, this is actually a really great question. I'm not entirely sure. But I imagine that it's one of those lines where they throw it in there anyway and we'd ask the question. Honestly, this is a good question. I don't know if ghosts can smell. I feel like there must have, over 10 years, there must have been a line, but I don't know. You know what I mean?
You don't know? Who am I talking to, man?
I know. Imposter.
What is this?
Highly suspect. Highly, highly suspect.
I had to ask one syllable.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Kick his ass! This is, like I said, a pretty good team. Two of them just quit.
Two of them just quit.
Oh yeah, they just quit.
I have a really quick question I have to ask.
Yeah, go for it.
What are the pukas?
Pukas are fish. No, okay. This is, you know what's hilarious? This is actually the video that I released today. So you asked this at the perfect freaking time. Yeah, this is amazing. Okay, so yes, pukas are fish, and the exo-stranger, when she discovers her, thinks that it is just a fish. You know, big deal.
Man, just quit.
Here's the thing: pukas are creatures. They have, as best we know, been raised in a sense where they're domesticated, so they've been raised as pets. But they have a really crazy ability. The ability is this: when a puka gets close to you and senses that you are feeling a certain kind of emotion, it will emulate that and then feed your memories back to you. So when this happens to the exo-stranger, she first has a feeling, and I want to say that the feeling is loneliness. Maybe, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it then feeds her back a memory that corresponds with that from her own past, right? So if you went up to one of these things and you're happy-go-lucky and you're just incredibly drunk, you sit there and you are having a great time, and the puka will play that back to you and will play back a similarly happy memory. Equally, for the exo-stranger, Elsie Bray, it keeps playing back her own memories, and she is often in this place where she is stressed or is under a lot of pressure or is just lonely, and she gets those memories played back to her a lot. When she learns this about the puka, this is actually what she decides to do. She combs through her memories to try and find out what she's doing wrong. This is more about Elsie, but that's her entire purpose in life, is just making sure that she can actually find a timeline in which she stops the witness. And eventually, this actually leads us back to the point of Beyond Light, where the puka has given her sufficient memories that she's identified that Guardians need to wield stasis, and she can't control them if we're going to survive and allow the witness to ultimately be defeated. This is where the puka comes in. More importantly, it comes from Neomuna. It clearly comes from Neomuna, because she discovered it on a station somewhere between Uranus and Pluto. Those are the 7th and 9th planets, or planetoids from the sun. The one between them is Neptune. So you're most definitely looking at something which comes from a station that probably orbits somewhere above or nearby to Neomuna. You know, these things are also native to the planet as best we can see in some respect. Either they were created locally or they were just part of the local fauna that people discovered that just happened to have this ability. So you're probably looking at those things all over the place because not only do they fly around the puka pond, but, you know, there are random pukas that you can apparently see out in the environment all over the place in the middle of the city. So you've got this really cool series of, like, different instances in which you'll probably be able to interact with them across Neomuna. One last thing I'd say, they're probably, and not definitely, but potentially linked to darkness. And the reason I say that is because memories are a key power of darkness. When you sit and you actually hear about the power of deep sight, the stuff you use in the Witch Queen campaign, all of that works by tapping into memories and the psychic imprints that strong memories leave. So when you sit and you actually hear about the pukas having some kind of power over memory, that's probably what you're looking at. Probably looking at something which is going to directly allow you to access your memories via dark power. So it's a really freaky kind of concept, just based purely on the fact that these cute little space fish are somehow vestiges of some kind of dark power, but it doesn't seem too impossible, you know? Like, stranger things have happened, and these things do also help Elsie find the original way she learns stasis. So, you know, there's all sorts of weird little things about the puka, and some of it's theory, but hopefully that answers all questions about fish. That's as best we know for the moment.
Kind of amazing.
Ridiculous little cute little things, but aside from that, that's all we know for the moment. I imagine there's going to be 10,000 different things we learn about the puka as we explore throughout the city and Neomuna and all that.
More to find out. Mr. Byf, it was an honor. Thank you, seriously, for probably talking through stuff that you are forced to talk through way too often, but you sound like you still, no matter how often you do, it sounds like you enjoy it. So I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with my audience and me. I think a lot of people are going to get to go into Lightfall, like I suggested, with just a lot more meaning behind actually playing through the story, rather than just get through story, get power. There might actually be things that we have picked up on over the last 30, 45 minutes that will help us enjoy that story and the meaning of everything a lot more. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, and it was a lovely card. I'm glad we got flawless so easily, dude. We absolutely slayed.
If I may leave you with but one extra little bit of wisdom from all of this, which I think is going to be very relevant. I've not mentioned it in any video thus far. At the very end of the Witch Queen campaign on Legendary, you get that cutscene with the Witness, and they sit there and they are talking directly at the Traveler, and they say something along the lines of, "You have nowhere left to run, you have no more cards to play, your pale heart holds the key." That, I think, is something everyone should remember. When the Witness is trying to go to the Traveler and attack it, just remember its pale heart supposedly holds the key. Your questions from there are, what is the key to, and where does the Witness go with it next? So yeah, thank you so much.